Alright guys, ranked time. I know I wasn't going to play another ranked game, but we've got to give it one more go before we switch. Vulgar puppy. Thank you so much, dude.
My mom has her heart surgery, TMRW. Thanks for always being here to take my mind off stuff.
My thoughts go out to you, my dude. I hope she does good. Thank you for being here, Vulgar Puppy. I appreciate the resub. Believe we can do it, guys. I really believe. Hey guys, what's up? Livibee here. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to my Gameverse FempeR, where we have an awesome ZVT game for you that I will be commentating on, sort of. More just giving you the insights into my mind as I'm playing. As if you've tuned into my stream, you'll know that commentating while I'm playing is very hard to do. Splitting the focus from what to do in the game and devoting 100% of your focus and attention to winning and sacrificing some of that skill in order to commentate is something I'm working on. Well, it's a work in progress. But in the meantime, you can enjoy this extra bonus YouTube content while I will commentate my VOD for you and everything I wish I could say while I was playing. This ZVT is quite an interesting one, as my opponent, FempeR, he does something a little bit unorthodox. I see a little blip on my minimap, a nice red shiny blip, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know. He replies with just another tree. FempeR, FempeR, FempeR. I don't think so, my dude. Surely enough, what arrives in my natural is none other than a Reaper. A proxy Reaper strategy. Doesn't look like it's a super committed proxy Reaper strategy. It looks like he's actually just going to be doing a little bit of a early Reaper harass, see how many drones he picks off. He does pick off 2 drones, regrettably. But I do get a really nice drone surround on that pesky little Reaper. Unfortunately, I do let the spore finish. It's clumsy mistakes like this are going to cost me. A little bit of an unfortunate event that I would have really preferred not to have done. You know, that drone could have been mining resources for me, and it would have been way more efficient to make that spore a little later in the game if I need it. You know, if your opponent goes for Banshees or Battle Cruisers. Penelope, thanks for gifting that sub to Downing. So now that I've made all these Zerglings that were supposed to defend the Proxy Reaper, I've decided to run them straight across the map to be aggressive with them, to scout and maybe pick off an SCV or 2. I scout that there's 0 SCVs in the natural, so I'll go straight up to the main base. Immediately start working on this reactor. Not only do I pick off the reactor, I do also get a cancel on the additional structure he was building beyond that. So a nice little bonus damage done by me, forcing FempeR to pull a nice amount of SCVs from his mineral line that could be mining to try and clean up these Zerglings. He does manage to get a Hellion out in time to deal with the Zerglings. But as a nice little added bonus for me, I do get a scout off in his main base, scouting his current tech structures and his current trajectory and which tech path he wants to take. It looks like it is going to be a Hellion opening. And from a Hellion opening could stem Hellbat all-ins, massive amounts of Hellion run-bys, or even mech. To deal with this, I think it is quite a safe play to throw down a Roach Warren, take an additional gas, and start teching up. But while I'm taking an additional gas, fully saturating my 2 base economy, taking a 3rd behind it, and making sure I'm going to continue scouting behind this. And around this time, I do want to sacrifice my Overlord that's hovering next to his main base, just so I can get a follow-up scout. Because you want to see what he makes with the Hellions. Especially since I haven't seen him be aggressive with the Hellions yet. He's not poking at my creep tumors, at my natural, or trying to run by into my mineral lines. So it's really important that I see what's up with that. While doing a Zergling run by, I also scout a tech lab on that starport. And a tech lab on the starport could mean 1 or 2 things. First up, I also got to scout the tech lab on the starport. Now this was a really crucial scout for me, as a tech lab on the starport means Banshees. I throw down a spore in every mineral line. Lucky I already had that spore from that proxy Reaper incident. But I also have those additional queens that I was using to creep spread early in the game. And I pushed the first initial Banshee back without taking any drone losses, which is really nice and cost efficient for me. So going into this mid game, I'm feeling I'm in a much better position than how it started, thankfully. I'm leaving a Zergling at both of his potential third bases as well, because scouting your opponent's third timing is essential in StarCraft. Because as a Zerg player, you always want to be one base ahead of your opponent. So when your opponent takes a third base, you want to take a fourth base. Even if you don't saturate it, it's really nice to have that extra lava production. It's like a macro hatch. I like to take macro hatches, but not in any of my existing bases. I like to take them at potential expansions. Now going into this mid game, I've got a healthy number of queens. Now that's going to really give me a jump start to my creep spread. And with my little scouting Zergling, I see him floating it down a third CC in order to expand. And lucky I had that Zergling in position, so now I know that because he's taken a third, I've got to start getting ready to take my fourth base. Creep spread and protect it. We've got to get more economy than our Turtle and Terran mech player. Do a little bit of a cheeky Overseer scout, just to reassure myself of the tech path he's chosen. That double armory definitely indicates mech. Also, I got to pick off that really low HP Banshee from before. It's always annoying when you get a Banshee down to the lowest possible HP and they just kite away the skin of their teeth. Now you see me going in full macro mode now in this game, because I've scouted that he's going for that mech play. Now I've got to go full greedy Zerg. Take extra bases, completely saturate all my bases, even take a couple of defensive spine crawlers, just for these really annoying Hellion run-bys that your mech Terran opponent will always try and throw at you to hinder your economy early in the game, so that when they push out with a huge mech force, you just won't be able to stop it. So I gotta make sure I have that healthy economy, I have that awesome creep spread, I have that great map awareness, and the scouting necessary in order to get ahead in this game. I'm also tech into Hive and researching pathogen glands on the infestation pit. This will allow me to make infestors quite early, just so that if he tries to do a really careless, shift-commanded, controlled Hellion run-by, I'll be able to fungal and clean up the Hellions very quickly and efficiently. But it looks like I did get a lucky catch on a group of Hellions at the north side of the map, picking off a couple of Hellions there, which is a nice catch for me. Taking all my gases at the additional bases and saturating it as well. I've thrown down my Spire and also my Hydralistan. I like the addition of Hydralisk because it adds a nice addition to my Zerg army in the late game. Just add that extra DPS against the Vikings or the Thors that they inevitably add once they see that I've gone Broodlords. So now I'm going to poke at the fourth base of the Terran player, just to see if I can try and cancel the fourth or maybe do some damage. And it looks like I have delayed that fourth base. I'm not sure if he cancelled it or he just chose not to land his fourth CC there just yet. Maybe just because he saw my little ball of roaches looking menacing and hungry. I'm keeping an eye on my Spire now as well at this point, because I want to morph a Greater Spire immediately. As soon as the Spire is done, there's no time to waste. I gotta get my Greater Spire out as quick as possible. And now you see me throwing it down 9.5 minutes into the game. This might be the earliest Greater Spire I've ever morphed, actually. This is Livibee Greed in its full form. I'm also getting upgrades for my Hydra Den, just so that when I'm ready to start making a bunch of Hydras, they won't be really weak and slow with no range. So my Zerg army force, as it stands, is just a bunch of roaches and queens with a little hit squad of infestors, just in case I need them. Oh, and I see a nice cheeky ball of Hellions just sitting and waiting on the edge of my creep, probably waiting for enough energy to scan so we can clean up some creep tumors. But I push forward with my little hit squad of infestors and I get a decent fungal off on the Hellions. I do pick off one and damage a bunch of the others. So now he's got to be a little bit more cautious with these Hellions. He knows he might not be able to just throw them away as easily as he might have before he knew I had the infestors. Do catch this Banshee, trying to catch me out of position, maybe get into my mineral lines that don't have spores protecting them. And that was a nice pick off, as it did force that Banshee to turn around. Didn't get the kill though, unfortunately, but that's alright. Forcing it back is the best that I could have hoped for. This game now has transitioned to more of a late game situation. The map is split completely in half. Both FempeR and I have a decent economy, with quite a few bases, and we're both building up banks to get our ideal unit composition. It really just comes down to finding that perfect window of opportunity and efficient engagement to really sway the game in favor of one player or the other. FempeR's throwing down scans, really checking to see what units I have, where they're positioned, and whether he can poke forth and pick off a unit here or there. I try and get a fungal, but it was a little bit too late. But that's okay. I've got to remain focused. I've got to remember what's important here in the game. Remember what I've learnt from all the losses that I've experienced in every game prior to this one. Why did I lose? What lost me the game? Most of the time, it all comes down to patience. Especially in a ZVT against a mech player opponent. If you play a very patient late game, building up the perfect Zerg army while protecting your economy, building a bank, you should come out ahead. To do this, you have to make sure you're constantly injecting and constantly macroing, making sure all your bases are saturated properly and that you're expanding and that you're creep spreading. I'm continuing on my upgrades as well. Always check back to your evolution chambers just to see if your upgrade's finished. Because if you can get your upgrades timed nicely, then that also could really sway and engage in favor of one or the other. Another scan goes down. A scan is a good indication of where your Terran opponent probably wants to engage as well. So it's really good to set up a nice Zerg spread in case he tries to push forth there or try and deny some creep with a bunch of units. Now he does try to do a bit of a Hellion run by again at one of my bases, but I do have static defense there in position, and I send a little hit squad of roaches to protect it as well. As you see my control groups, I'll have my main army unit composition on 1. That's my ground units, my queens, my roaches, my hydralisks, my zerglings. On 2, I like to keep my air units, so my corruptors in this game. 3 will always be my spellcasters, so that's usually my infestors, sometimes vipers depending on what unit composition I want to go for. And 4 will always be my siege units. So those are my broodlords, or my swarm hosts, if I ever make swarm hosts. Which should be probably never, they're not very good. FempeR's doing a really good job, however, picking off stray broodlords when I'm posturing to push forth with them, to try and get a little poke here and there on a siege tank clump. He picks off a couple of broodlords, and I try and do a bit of engagement, but I don't want to engage off of creep. Engaging off of creep is bad news bears. It's very cost inefficient for you as a Zerg player. Your army is very slow, and you can really be caught out of position with nowhere to retreat. So I'm just backing up. I'm taking additional hatcheries on both sides of the map. In case one gets cancelled, you can utilize the other. And creep spreading as well. It's a very sticky pickle, this situation. You're trying to find that very small window of weakness in your opponent's defenses, in where you can do damage. If you can find that weakness in your Terran's defenses, then it could have a snowball effect to pushing him back. But in the same token, that could also work for him. If he can clean up the creep spread, pick off a vital number of broodlords, weaken your army, he can really just steamroll through the rest of your bases before you're able to regroup or remax your army. So it's really just a little dance we're doing at this point in time. Trying to poke forth with some broodlords. Maybe if I can land a juicy fungal on a bunch of Vikings, it will force an engagement out of him. But until that happens, the dance continues. I try to utilize my energy on my queens as efficiently as possible. If something gets weak, the poking of the Thors or the Vikings, then you can transfuse those weak units that took damage, and it just makes your whole army a hell of a lot stronger. But I back up for now. I really want to regroup, remaxing my army, making my army composition even stronger. I replant some creep, I spread some existing tumors, and I focus on transferring drones and saturating my bases. I feel like at this stage of the game, it's also really nice if you can utilize all your units in unique and different ways that might catch your opponent off guard. So you'll see me sending my corruptors up the top just to see if he's taken any of these southern bases on the map, so I can caustic spray them down. It's really important you get onto this as quick as possible before they put up like 5,000 missile turrets. If there's no missile turrets defending that command center, then caustic spray is actually really good when you get to a critical number of corruptors. At this point in the game, I have 11 corruptors, and that can kill a command center very quickly. So I've successfully caustic sprayed that command center down. Also, now that I'm maxed, I don't really want roaches as part of my unit composition anymore. Roaches, they just take up a lot of supply, they're quite bulky, and they don't really do all that great in endgame army engagements. So you'll see I've rallied all my roaches to the top side of the map to get rid of them, but efficiently. So I'll send them into the mineral lines of maybe a newly formed base that might not have as many defenses or siege tanks protecting it. And if I'm really lucky, it won't be a planetary yet. But even if it is planetary, at least it will kill my roaches, and maybe I'll get an SCV or two, and it might force him to repair, which, costs minerals. I was really lucky to actually catch 2 Thors out of position here, which is really nice. On the flip side, he's actually countering me with Hellbats in my bottom hatchery. But this actually might be the engagement I was looking for. The Thor gets surrounded by the broodlings, bugging it out, and I neuroparasite it to finish it off just because I can. I neuroparasite a couple more Thors and pick them off. Behind this, he actually tries to do a Hellion run by, which I feel like is the proper response for FempeR. He's trying to do damage to my economy as much as I'm doing damage to his. But I'm not going to turn my Broodlords around. Broodlords are very slow, and I still want to push forth and do damage to as much of his economy as possible. He actually gets a little impatient with his army engagements, and I get a huge amount of neuroparasites off on siege tanks, Thors, and even a Viking in there. That was actually a huge chunk of his supply. And now I feel confident enough to push forward and keep picking off his bases. I have a very nice clump of Hydras, and Hydras are great against Thors, adding that very crucial amount of DPS, as well as protecting them from possible Viking clumps that might threaten my Broodlords. I push forward. I actually neuroparasite 2 of his Thors, but the siege tank splash damage cleans up my infestors, but I just have too much at this stage of the game. I feel like that very critical and cost-efficient army engagement in the middle of the map, wiping out command centers left, right, and center, I just don't think FempeR can remax as quickly as he needs to defend against my maxed out Zerg army that is impending upon his side of the map. Behind this, I'm still macroing though. I'm transferring drones. I've got a lot of mined out bases that I'm going to be transferring drones from, taking additional hatcheries, and still creep spreading. It's important not to get sloppy in this case scenario, even if you think you've won the game. There has been games in this situation that have been thrown before. So if you find yourself in this position, stay focused. Don't throw your games. Keep pushing forth, keep macroing, keep creep spreading, keep injecting, keep transfusing, and keep microing. You've got this. I feel like at this point, I feel very joyous at this point. I think you can tell I let out a huge smile, and these MMR points are as good as mine. It's too much for FempeR to deal with. My Zerglings are attacking any possible hidden bases he may be trying to retake, and I'm just allowing no wiggle room for FempeR to come back into this game. A couple of my rallies do get caught by his siege tank at that very fortified base at his 3rd, but I'm onto his production now. He's actually not able to produce anything from these factories because my Broodlords are just right on top of them. And he calls down the GG, and the victory goes to the B. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys for the next one. Are we freaking dead out, you guys? I was feeling like a potato. Yes. What up, you guys? Oh, I can't wipe the smile off my face. Just when you think you can't push anymore, you push it further, and then you do it.